Hello everyone and welcome to another build video. In this one we're gonna turn our attention towards building the hubs of the car as well as installing them onto the lower arms. So let's get to it. So I like to start with just the hub. Grab the ST03 ball, again not to mistake it for the ST24. So the one on the left is the one you want for the hubs, ST03. This is a 5.0mm ball and the one on the right is a 4.8. Just notice the chamfer just below the ball. Chamfer on the ST03 and no chamfer on ST24. For this ball in particular, the one at the bottom of the hub, I like to use a little bit of thread lock just because this screw or ball stud is hard to access, and therefore in the event it's gonna get loose, it's a big job to tightening it. So just to make sure this never happens, I use just a bit of thread lock. On top we can install the steering arm, so notice just one hole is for the rear and the 2-hole version AM14LS, 2 holes for the front, AM23R, just 1 hole for the rear. Secure it with a 5mm button head screw. This doesn't need to be super tight, especially because later on we're gonna set the camber and caster and we're gonna need to remove it. And on the top another ST03, and again we're building the car with the recommended carpet setup, and this setup calls for 1.75 shim here. Easy as that. Next we're gonna prepare the bearings. As always, it's a good idea to add a drop of oil in case they come a little bit dry from the factory. Same oil as every time, this Maxler bearing oil does the job perfectly. So let's get to it. Grab the wheel axles and 2 bearings. At this stage the manual also calls for a 0.1 shim that goes in between the wheel axle and the first bearing. This can make the drivetrain a little bit tight at first, so for brand new cars I don't suggest using it at first, only when the car starts to develop a little bit of slop. So I'm gonna leave it aside for now. But a very handy option is this AT15 spacer that goes in between the 2 bearings. This is an optional part. As you can see, it separates the inner races of the bearings, and this will dramatically increase the lifespan of the bearings. This is highly recommended, but for the sake of this build we're gonna leave it aside for now and just simply insert the 2 bearings. Check for free movement. Perfect. And again, on the manual it says to install this M2 screw to pinch the 2 bearings to secure everything. Again, this is not really recommended for a brand new kit. It tends to make the drivetrain a little bit too tight. Highly recommended for older cars though, but for a new kit you do want to make sure there is a little bit of play, as we found that it tends to make the car a bit more forgiving and generate a bit more traction. And therefore a car that is too tight and doesn't have enough play in the hubs will probably not handle quite as well. And there is definitely such a thing as not enough play. The next thing I like to do is to slightly modify the PO4 plastic part. That's the part that actually connects the hubs to the lower arms and also the dampers and the sway bars. And what I like to do is, because popping in the ST205 in there can be a bit tight to maintain the car, install and remove the dampers. So I like to slightly enlarge the holes with the 90-degree mill bit. Just remove actually quite a bit of material. And the idea there is to remove enough material so that you can pop the ST205 in and out by hand. Doing so will dramatically ease the process of installing and removing the dampers from the car. Still too tight. And I will also do the other side for the sway bar again, so that I can just install the, what we like to call the stabby bananas into the plastic part. So let's see, this is the rear ride. So this one is going to be for ST205 and this one for the sway bar. Still too tight. All right, we're getting pretty close. And now, as you can see, just with my fingers, I can just pop it in and out. So this PO4 is ready to go. So grab the arm, two of these M2.5 screws, and we can start putting everything together. So it is quite a snug fit, especially with brand new parts. And also take your time while cutting these threads on the plastic. It's a bit tight, take your time. So here we want the hub to stay free, so we are not gonna go fully tight. Rather, we're just gonna go until the screw gets in contact with the carbon fiber. And while this is obviously too tight, we're gonna loosen the screws step by step, pushing it flat on the board. Until we have both free movement, but also the minimal amount of play. All right, now this is free, but I have a tiny bit of play, so we're gonna tighten the screw just slightly. Now this is too tight. This is perfect. Now, very important. It is crucial to monitor this area during the first few runs of a fresh kit, as play will increase while the plastic settles in. So my advice is to check it every other run during your first track day with the car, but past that point you should barely move during the lifespan of your kit. We can pop in ST205 and the stabby banana. Again, note that this part has two holes, a small one and a big one. The small hole is for 1.0 and 1.1 sway bar. The big one is for 1.2 and 1.3. In this case, we're gonna use a 1.1 in the front and the rear. So we're gonna pop the bigger hole at the bottom. We're gonna pop it into the PO4. Perfect. So that's one corner of the car ready to go. 3 more corners to go. And thanks to the magic of editing, there you have it. All 4 corners are assembled and ready to be installed in the car. But that's gonna be for a later video. Hope you guys enjoyed it and see you guys in the next video. Ciao, ciao.